Have you ever wondered why some people remain trapped in endless cycles of struggle while others seem to effortlessly manifest peace, abundance, and joy? The difference isn't luck or circumstance. It's something far more profound happening beneath the surface of consciousness. What if I told you that a single shift in understanding could completely transform every aspect of your life? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the globe. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Has this ever happened to you? You work tirelessly to solve a problem, whether it's a health issue, a financial struggle, or a challenging relationship, only to find yourself facing the same patterns again and again, despite your best efforts. What if these persistent challenges aren't actually problems to be solved, but illusions to be dissolved through a deeper understanding of who you truly are? Most spiritual teachings offer techniques and practices to improve your human experience. But Joel Goldsmith discovered something far more revolutionary. You are not a human seeking spiritual experiences. You are divine consciousness, temporarily experiencing itself through human form. Stay with me until the end, because this profound shift in identity changes everything. When you truly understand the power of I am, you stop identifying with your personality, your past, your struggles, and your limitations. Instead, you recognize yourself as the very presence of God, expressing uniquely as you. This isn't positive thinking or affirmation. It's a radical recognition of what you have always been, but temporarily forgot. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because it contradicts much of what conventional wisdom tells us about spiritual growth. Most seekers spend years trying to manifest better circumstances, affirming prosperity, or visualizing health, all while still believing they are separate from the divine. But what if your problems aren't actually solved through spiritual techniques? What if they simply dissolve when you recognize your true divine nature? Think about shadows cast on a wall. You can't remove them by scrubbing the wall or covering them with paint. They disappear instantly when you turn on the light. Similarly, when you embrace the truth of I am, your problems don't get resolved through effort. They dissolve naturally because they were never real in spiritual truth. They were merely shadows cast by false identification with temporary conditions. This understanding isn't just philosophical, it transforms your entire experience of life. Imagine moving through your days without the burden of trying to fix, change, or improve your circumstances. Imagine knowing with unshakable certainty that the divine intelligence that creates galaxies is expressing itself as your individual life right now. If this exploration of the I am consciousness resonated with you, subscribe to join our community of spiritual seekers. Each video goes deeper into these timeless truths that transform how you experience every aspect of life. This journey of transformation reveals why many spiritual practices only create temporary results. Have you noticed how affirmations often feel like you're trying to convince yourself of something you don't quite believe? There's a profound revelation here. Most seekers make a critical error. They repeat, I am wealthy, or I am healthy, while still believing at a deeper level that they're separate human beings trying to manifest better conditions. The mindset shift that creates lasting change isn't about using I am as a manifestation technique. It's recognizing that the I that speaks those words isn't your personality at all. It's the same divine consciousness that spoke through Moses at the burning bush saying, I am that I am. It's the same Christ awareness that Jesus referred to when he said, before Abraham was, I am. This hidden truth completely reframes the spiritual journey. You're not using spiritual practices to improve your human experience. You're awakening to the divine consciousness that has been your true identity all along. The impact of this understanding goes far beyond surface-level changes in circumstance. It's a complete reversal of how you've perceived reality. Behind the scenes of every spiritual tradition, this single revelation has been the catalyst for the most profound transformations. The masters weren't teaching techniques to get more stuff. They were pointing to the unlimited nature of what you already are. The practical application is deceptively simple, yet revolutionary. Instead of thinking, I am sick or I am struggling financially, you learn to rest in the pure awareness of I am, without adding any qualifiers or conditions. This isn't denial or spiritual bypassing. It's allowing divine consciousness to express itself as your individual existence without the limitations imposed by false identification. Consider the difference between these two approaches. In one, you're a separate being repeating affirmations to attract better circumstances. In the other, you're resting in the recognition that divine wholeness is already expressing as you, needing no improvement or change. The decisions you make from this awakened state flow naturally from wholeness rather than from perceived lack. You no longer approach life as a series of problems to be solved, but as an expression of the infinite intelligence that's been orchestrating the universe long before you identified as a separate self. This understanding transforms how you move through challenges. When faced with illness, relationship difficulties, or financial pressure, instead of immediately thinking, how can I fix this problem? You first return to the awareness of I am, the unchanging consciousness that remains untouched by temporary conditions. From this place of pure awareness, solutions often appear that your problem-solving mind could never have conceived. It's like accessing a higher intelligence that sees pathways invisible to your ordinary thinking. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this understanding of I am doesn't just change your personal experience. It fundamentally transforms how you relate to everyone and everything in your life. Put in the comments, I am awareness, if you've ever experienced moments where you felt this pure consciousness beneath your thinking mind. One of the most profound revelations in this spiritual journey is discovering there's no separation between you and the infinite source of all good. This insight completely rewires your perception of reality. Every experience of lack, limitation, or fear you've ever had was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of your true nature. The divine I am that constitutes your real identity has never been sick, has never lacked anything, has never been afraid. This understanding breaks through the invisible barrier that seemed to stand between you and everything you've been seeking. The enlightenment process isn't about becoming something you're not. It's about uncovering the abundance, wholeness, and perfection that has always been your true nature beneath the disguise of human experience. Behind every spiritual breakthrough story is this same paradigm shift. People don't transform their lives by accumulating more knowledge or techniques. They experience a fundamental revelation about who they actually are. The mindset transformation happens when you stop seeing yourself as a separate human entity, trying to connect with some distant divine power, and recognize that divine power as your very essence. As you integrate this understanding, you naturally begin to experience life from an entirely different perspective. Joel Goldsmith called this the practice of the presence of God, but it could just as accurately be called remembering your true identity. The journey becomes less about bringing spiritual power into your problems and more about recognizing that what you are in your deepest truth is the very presence and power of the infinite itself. This practice creates a profound shift in how you navigate daily life. When challenges arise, whether physical symptoms, relationship difficulties, or financial pressures, your first response isn't to immediately try fixing the external condition. Instead, you return to the recognition of your true identity as divine consciousness, which remains untouched by temporary appearances. The impact of this understanding reverberates through every dimension of your existence. Decision-making becomes intuitive rather than stressful. Creative solutions appear naturally because you're accessing the same infinite intelligence that orchestrates the entire cosmos. Relationships transform as you begin seeing others not as separate personalities, but as unique expressions of the same divine consciousness you are. This isn't a theoretical concept, but a living practice, one that completely reorients your relationship with existence itself. You move from being a separate entity, struggling against life's currents, to being the awareness in which all experience appears and disappears. The liberation this brings is beyond words, yet it manifests as profound peace in everyday living. Now I want to explore how this understanding transforms your relationship with the material world, particularly in areas where people experience the greatest struggle, like health, wealth, and relationships. If you've ever experienced moments of feeling completely at peace despite external circumstances, type "I am peace" in the comments below. One of the most revolutionary aspects of understanding I am is how it completely transforms your relationship with the material world. When this awareness becomes your living reality, a profound shift occurs. You stop looking to the world to give you what you think you need. This represents a complete reversal in the flow of energy in your life. Most people operate from a mindset of lack, constantly seeking to acquire, achieve, or accumulate something they believe will make them complete. But this approach creates a perpetual cycle of seeking that never ends because it's built on a fundamental misconception about your nature. The breakthrough moment comes when you realize you already are the source of what you've been seeking. The ripple effect of this revelation touches every dimension of your experience. Your relationships transform because you're no longer trying to extract love, approval, or validation from others. Instead, you naturally express the love that you are. Your work becomes an outlet for service rather than a means to gain security or status. Your creative endeavors flow from abundance rather than from need for recognition. Subscribe now to continue your journey of spiritual awakening. When you join our community, you'll discover more powerful teachings that help you recognize and live from your true divine identity. This shift from getting to giving isn't something you have to force or practice. It emerges naturally as you recognize your true identity. It's like a spring naturally flowing outward once the blockages are removed. The mindset transformation happens at such a fundamental level that your entire orientation to life changes without effort. A powerful illustration of this principle appeared in the journey of a woman who had struggled with chronic illness for years. Her story reveals the essence of true healing. After exhausting every medical treatment, spiritual technique, and healing modality available, she remained trapped in suffering because she was still operating from a fundamental misunderstanding about her nature. The pivotal moment in her healing journey wasn't finding the right treatment. It was the revelation that her true identity as divine consciousness had never been sick and could never be sick. The body is simply an appearance in consciousness, like an image projected on a screen. When you change the projector, your consciousness, the image changes automatically. This understanding of healing goes far beyond positive thinking or visualization techniques. It's not about trying to heal what appears to be broken. It's about awakening to the truth that your essential nature has never been touched by any condition or circumstance. The impact of this revelation isn't just physical healing, it's complete liberation from the belief that you could ever be separate from wholeness. Behind the scenes of every genuine healing is this same fundamental shift in identity. Rather than seeing yourself as a damaged human seeking restoration, you recognize yourself as divine consciousness temporarily, experiencing a limited human perspective. From this awakened state, healing isn't something you achieve, it's something you remember. Now let me share how this understanding of I am creates a revolutionary approach to abundance and success that defies conventional wisdom about manifestation. If you've experienced moments where you felt complete just as you are, without needing to add or change anything, type I am complete in the comments. The understanding of I am extends powerfully into the professional realm, creating a complete paradigm shift in how success is approached and achieved. Consider the journey of a businessman who revolutionized his entire enterprise simply by starting each day resting in the awareness of I am before engaging with any business activities. The transformation wasn't just philosophical, it manifested in tangible results that defied conventional business wisdom. Prior to this awakening, he operated like most entrepreneurs, driven by fear of failure, constantly stressed about competition, and working endless hours trying to create security through external achievement. The hidden truth he discovered was that he had been approaching success backward, trying to extract security from his business instead of bringing security to his business from his true identity. The revelation came when he began making decisions from an entirely different consciousness. Rather than asking, "What will protect me from loss?" or "How can I beat the competition?" he naturally began operating from questions like, "What would best serve everyone involved?" and "What is trying to emerge through this situation?" This shift in mindset completely transformed his leadership style, corporate culture, and business results. Behind the scenes of every truly successful venture is this same principle at work. When you operate from the consciousness of abundance rather than scarcity, you naturally make decisions that create more value for everyone involved. This isn't a technique or strategy. It's the natural expression of your divine identity when it's not obscured by fear-based thinking. This same principle creates equally powerful transformations in relationships. Many people approach relationships from a fundamental misconception, believing that love is something they need to get from others. They evaluate relationships based on what they're receiving, constantly feeling disappointed when others don't fulfill their emotional needs or expectations. The breakthrough moment comes when you stop trying to get love from others and start expressing the love that you are as divine consciousness. This shift isn't about giving to get. It's about recognizing that love isn't something you receive, it's something you are. The impact of this understanding ripples through every relationship in your life. A woman who had been married for 20 years discovered this truth and watched her relationship transform completely. She had spent 2 decades trying to change her husband, feeling frustrated and unloved. When she stopped judging his behavior and started seeing him as the divine consciousness he truly is, beneath all his human personality patterns, everything changed. Their relationship healed not because he changed, but because she started relating to him from truth instead of from her wounded ego. This revelation applies to every relationship in your life: family, friends, colleagues, even strangers. When you see others as divine consciousness, temporarily confused about their identity, just as you once were, you naturally become a healing presence. You're no longer triggered by their human behavior because you're relating to their essential nature rather than their temporary personality. Let me share how this understanding of I am transforms how we approach life's greatest challenges and difficulties. If you've experienced a relationship transform when you changed how you saw the other person, type I am love in the comments. The power of understanding I am extends beyond personal transformation. It fundamentally alters how you influence others and create healing in relationships. When you consistently see others through the lens of their divine nature rather than their human problems, you create an atmosphere where transformation naturally occurs without manipulation or control. A mother discovered this truth while facing one of life's most heartbreaking challenges, watching her son struggle with addiction. Despite years of trying every approach from tough love to endless support, nothing seemed to help. The breakthrough came when she shifted her focus from trying to fix her son's behavior to holding an unwavering awareness of who he truly was beneath the addiction. Every day she would quietly rest in the recognition that the I am expressing as her son was perfect, whole, and complete, temporarily confused about his identity, but never damaged or broken. This wasn't denial or passive acceptance. It was seeing past temporary appearances to the unchanging divine consciousness that constituted his true being. The hidden truth she discovered was that her consciousness became a healing sanctuary, a space where her son could reconnect with his own divine nature without judgment or pressure. Within months, without intervention from her, he began making different choices and seeking help. The revelation here goes beyond parenting. It applies to every relationship and interaction in your life. This approach to healing others represents a complete paradigm shift from conventional wisdom. Instead of trying to change people's behavior through advice, persuasion, or manipulation, you hold the space of truth for them by seeing their essential nature beyond all appearances. This creates an invisible field of possibility where their own awakening can emerge naturally. Through practicing this awareness with yourself and others, you make another profound discovery. You are not your thoughts, emotions, or physical sensations. You are the unchanging awareness in which all experiences appear and disappear. This realization brings a stability that transforms your entire experience of life. Joel Goldsmith called this the consciousness of truth, a way of living from your spiritual identity, regardless of changing circumstances. The impact of this understanding becomes most evident during life's greatest challenges. When difficulties arise, instead of being tossed about by changing conditions, you rest in the stability of knowing who you truly are. This doesn't mean you become detached or indifferent to life's experiences. Rather, you engage with them from a deeper dimension of your being, the unchanging awareness that remains constant while thoughts, emotions, and circumstances continuously shift. The journey of spiritual awakening ultimately leads to this profound recognition. You are not what changes. You are the unchanging witness of all change. Now I want to explore how this understanding transforms how we approach abundance and material success in a world obsessed with accumulation and achievement. If you've ever experienced moments where you felt completely stable despite chaotic circumstances around you, type "I am stability" in the comments. The understanding of I am completely transforms your relationship with abundance and material prosperity. When most people think about abundance, they imagine accumulating resources from outside themselves. More money, possessions, or opportunities. But this approach perpetuates a fundamental misconception that keeps people trapped in cycles of lack and limitation. The revelation that creates lasting abundance is recognizing that you are not separate from the source of all supply. The divine I am that constitutes your true identity isn't rich or poor. It's the infinite source from which all prosperity flows. This shift in perspective changes everything about how you relate to the material world and your needs. This understanding doesn't mean money will magically appear without practical action. Instead, it means you take action from an entirely different consciousness, from the awareness of abundance rather than from the desperation of lack. The decisions you make, the opportunities you recognize, and the value you create all transform when you operate from this awakened state. Consider how different your experience would be if you genuinely knew that the same infinite intelligence that coordinates galaxies and sustains ecosystems is fully capable of meeting your needs through perfect channels. This confident expectancy isn't wishful thinking. It's based on the direct recognition of your true identity and its relationship to all of life. The breakthrough realization is that abundance isn't something you achieve or attract. It's what you are in your essential nature. Every experience of lack has been the result of identifying with the limited human perspective rather than with the unlimited divine consciousness that you truly are. This mindset transformation doesn't just change your financial circumstances, it liberates you from the anxiety and fear that accompany the belief in limitation. Perhaps the most profound aspect of understanding I am is how it transforms your experience during life's greatest challenges and crises. This is where the rubber meets the road in spiritual understanding. Can you maintain your recognition of truth when everything in the human experience seems to be falling apart? In moments of crisis, instead of getting lost in fear or desperately trying to figure out solutions with your limited human mind, you can rest in the awareness that divine consciousness is never in crisis. The eternal I am that you are remains untouched by temporary human circumstances, regardless of how challenging they appear. This understanding doesn't lead to passive acceptance of difficult conditions. Rather, it gives you access to a higher intelligence that can respond to challenges from wisdom instead of from panic. Solutions often appear that your problem-solving mind could never have conceived because you're operating from a different dimension of awareness. The journey of awakening ultimately reveals an unshakable peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances being a certain way. This isn't a peace you achieve. It's the peace that is already the nature of your true identity when it's not obscured by identification with temporary human concerns and problems. Now, I want to explore how this understanding of I am unleashes creativity and authentic expression in ways that transform not just your experience, but your contribution to the world. If you've experienced moments of profound peace during difficult circumstances, type I am serenity in the comments. Understanding I am opens entirely new dimensions of creativity and authentic expression. When you create from the awareness of your divine nature rather than from the personal ego, something remarkable happens. You become a channel for infinite intelligence to express itself uniquely through your individual gifts and talents. This transformation in the creative process goes far beyond technique or skill development. An artist discovered this truth after years of struggling with creative blocks and doubting her abilities. Despite her technical mastery, her work felt forced and inauthentic, until she had a profound realization about the true source of creativity. Instead of trying to generate original ideas from her limited human mind, she began allowing divine consciousness to express itself through her art without interference from personal agendas or the need for recognition. The revelation she experienced was that creativity isn't something you have to struggle to produce. It's the natural expression of the divine consciousness that you are. When she rested in the awareness of I am before beginning her work, inspiration and creative energy flowed effortlessly. Her artwork became more powerful and authentic because it wasn't filtered through the limited perspective of personal fear or the desire to impress others. This principle applies to every form of creative expression. Whether you're an artist, writer, musician, entrepreneur, parent, or anyone seeking to live more authentically, the breakthrough insight is that you don't need to force creativity or originality. When you recognize yourself as divine consciousness, you become an open channel through which infinite creativity naturally expresses itself in completely unique ways. The journey of awakening to I am ultimately leads to the most profound transformation of all, the end of seeking itself. After years or even lifetimes of spiritual searching, the startling discovery is that what you've been seeking has been what you are all along. You're not a human having occasional spiritual experiences. your spiritual consciousness having a temporary human experience. This recognition brings a profound peace that nothing else can provide, because the restless seeking that has driven so much of human experience simply stops. You're no longer trying to get to some future state of enlightenment or spiritual achievement. You're resting in the completeness and perfection that you have always been, but simply hadn't recognized until now. Joel Goldsmith called this the end of the journey and the beginning of life. When you stop seeking to become spiritual and start living from the spirituality that you are, your entire existence transforms. Life becomes an authentic expression of joy and service rather than a struggle to achieve or prove something. You're free to be yourself without apology or explanation. This doesn't mean you stop growing, learning, or serving. It means you do all these things from wholeness rather than from lack, from love rather than from fear, from the abundance of what you are rather than from the poverty of what you think you lack. The mindset shift is complete. You move from being a spiritual seeker to being a living expression of the truth you've discovered. Now I want to explore how this understanding of I am transforms your approach to life's greatest challenges, and how it becomes a practical living reality rather than just a philosophical concept. If you've experienced that moment of recognizing you already are what you've been seeking, type "I am home" in the comments. As we bring this exploration of the I am consciousness to a close, I'm reminded of something Joel Goldsmith often said: that true understanding doesn't come from intellectual knowledge alone, but through living the truth we've discovered. The journey of awakening to your divine identity continues long after this video ends, unfolding in each moment of your daily life. If these insights have resonated with something deep within you, perhaps that's because they're awakening a truth you've always known, but temporarily forgot. Your presence here wasn't an accident. There's a reason these teachings found their way to you today. I'd love to continue this journey together. Subscribe to join our community of spiritual explorers who are rediscovering their true identity beyond the limitations of human conditioning. When you subscribe, you'll receive more teachings that build upon this foundation of truth we've established today. If this message spoke directly to your heart, leave a comment saying, "I am awakening," so I know these teachings have found their home with you. Your comment not only helps others find this content, but creates a beautiful tapestry of shared recognition as we all remember who we truly are. Give this video a like if you felt that sense of recognition, that moment where something within you whispered yes to the truth being shared. Each like helps these teachings reach others who are ready for this understanding. There's a video right here that explores how to practically apply the I am consciousness in relationships that might be challenging you right now. Click and continue with me over there as we take this understanding even deeper into the fabric of your daily life. The journey continues, and I'm grateful to be walking it with you.
In 1943, Joel Goldsmith stood at the edge of complete spiritual collapse. The man who would become Christianity's greatest mystical healer was making the exact same devastating mistake you're making right now. He was desperately trying to heal with his human mind instead of resting in divine consciousness. This single error nearly destroyed his spiritual mission before it truly began. For agonizing months, Joel struggled with repeated failures, mounting doubts, and the growing horrifying realization that everything he thought he knew about spiritual healing was completely wrong. His personal human will was actively fighting against divine grace. But in one life-changing, transformative moment of complete surrender, Joel discovered the revolutionary secret that changed absolutely everything. He stopped trying to make something happen through human effort and started allowing something divine to happen through spiritual receptivity. This dramatic shift from mental effort to spiritual receptivity became the unshakable foundation of mystical Christianity. Today, I'm going to reveal exactly what Joel learned in that moment of crisis, because you're making the same mistake that almost cost him everything. And it's costing you your spiritual power right now. The mistake Joel made is the exact same mistake every sincere spiritual seeker makes without exception. We desperately try to use our limited personal will to access unlimited divine power. We pray harder, affirm louder, visualize clearer, thinking that more human effort automatically equals more spiritual results. But Joel discovered that spiritual law works in complete opposition to human logic. The moment he stopped trying to heal anyone, genuine healing happened effortlessly. The instant he stopped trying to demonstrate supply, true abundance flowed naturally. When he ceased trying to find God, God found him immediately. This wasn't giving up in defeat. It was giving in to a higher intelligence that already knew the perfect solution. The secret Joel uncovered was this revolutionary truth. Your consciousness, not your thinking mind, is the only true instrument of divine expression in the material world. Your mind thinks, plans, worries, and struggles constantly. Your consciousness simply receives, allows, and expresses divine perfection naturally. One fights desperately against divine order. The other aligns perfectly with infinite intelligence and allows miracles to unfold. Here's exactly what Joel realized about the profound difference between consciousness and mental effort that changes everything. When you try to heal with your thinking mind, you're attempting to use limited personal power to accomplish unlimited spiritual work. It's like trying to lift yourself off the ground by pulling on your own bootstraps. The harder you try through human effort, the more spiritually exhausted you become, and the further you move from actual divine demonstration. But when you work directly from consciousness, you become a perfect transparency for unlimited divine action to flow through you without any personal interference whatsoever. You don't heal anyone through personal effort. You don't demonstrate anything through human will. You simply maintain the pure consciousness of spiritual wholeness, and wholeness appears automatically in human experience. You hold the consciousness of infinite abundance, and divine supply manifests naturally. Joel called this the crucial difference between taking anxious thought and being established in spiritual consciousness. Taking thought is frantic mental activity, endless planning, constant worrying, desperately trying to make something happen through personal force. Being in consciousness is resting peacefully in eternal spiritual truth, knowing with absolute certainty that I am is the only real power present in every situation. This isn't passive resignation or spiritual laziness. It's active receptivity that allows unlimited divine intelligence to work through you completely unobstructed. You're not doing nothing spiritually. You're allowing everything divine to flow through your consciousness as perfect human experience. And that fundamental shift makes all the difference between spiritual struggle and effortless demonstration of divine harmony in your daily life. The practical application of Joel's revolutionary discovery changes absolutely everything about how you approach any spiritual work. Instead of trying to heal a persistent headache, you recognize that in pure consciousness, there simply is no headache, because perfection is the only reality. Instead of trying to demonstrate money through human effort, you rest completely in the consciousness that I am is infinite supply itself, appearing as your every need fulfilled perfectly. You stop fighting against problems and start ignoring them from the higher perspective of spiritual truth. Let me share a powerful story that proves Joel's consciousness approach works even in the most challenging circumstances imaginable. Maria was a devoted spiritual student who had been struggling with chronic debilitating pain for many years. She had tried every healing method available, attended every service regularly, read every spiritual book, but nothing changed in her condition despite years of sincere spiritual effort. Maria was making Joel's original devastating mistake. She was using her thinking mind to try to heal her physical body, affirming health while secretly believing in sickness, declaring wholeness while experiencing constant pain. Her desperate mental effort was actually reinforcing the very condition she wanted to heal most. Then Maria learned Joel's revolutionary secret of consciousness. Instead of trying to heal her persistent pain, she began to rest completely in the consciousness that God is the only presence and power. She stopped trying to make her body well through human effort and started recognizing that in spiritual reality, she had never actually been sick. She withdrew all spiritual reality from the appearance of sickness and rested in the truth of divine perfection. Within just a few weeks of this new approach, the chronic pain began to diminish noticeably. Within several months, it was completely gone forever. But here's what's absolutely crucial for your understanding. Maria didn't heal her body through personal effort. She stopped believing her body needed healing. She withdrew spiritual reality from the appearance of sickness and rested in the eternal truth of divine wholeness. Another student of Joel's consciousness principles, Robert, was facing complete financial collapse. His business was failing rapidly, debts were mounting dangerously, and paralyzing fear was consuming his thoughts. Like Joel in 1943, Robert was desperately trying to use spiritual principles to fix material problems through human effort. Robert spent many hours each day affirming abundance, visualizing success, and trying to demonstrate prosperity through mental concentration and personal will. But the harder he tried through human effort, the worse his financial situation became. His frantic mental effort was operating from the fundamental belief that he lacked something essential that needed to be obtained through personal struggle. When Robert learned to properly apply Joel's consciousness technique, everything shifted dramatically. Instead of trying to get money through human effort, he began to rest completely in the consciousness that I am is infinite supply itself. He stopped seeing himself as poor and started recognizing his true divine nature as abundance itself. The transformation took several months of consistent practice, but it was absolutely complete. Business opportunities appeared unexpectedly, debts resolved mysteriously, and abundance flowed naturally without personal effort. Robert had discovered that consciousness of supply is supply itself, not merely the avenue to supply. Sarah's marriage was on the brink of divorce when she discovered Joel's transformative teachings. Her husband was emotionally distant, communication had completely broken down, and both were ready to give up entirely. Sarah had been praying desperately for her marriage to be healed, but her prayers were filled with fear and desperation rather than spiritual consciousness. Sarah was trying to heal her relationship through mental effort and emotional pleading. She was seeing her marriage as broken and trying to fix it through spiritual techniques applied with human will. This approach was actually reinforcing the appearance of separation and discord in her relationship. When Sarah learned Joel's consciousness method, she stopped trying to heal her marriage through personal effort and started recognizing the spiritual reality of divine love as the only true presence. She ceased seeing her husband as unloving and began to know him as the perfect expression of divine love itself. The change in their relationship was gradual but absolutely profound. As Sarah maintained the consciousness of divine love, her husband began to respond completely differently. Communication improved naturally, intimacy returned spontaneously, and their marriage became stronger than ever before. These transformation stories reveal the unlimited power of Joel's consciousness technique. When you stop trying to change appearances and start recognizing spiritual reality, appearances change automatically. If these transformation stories inspire you, like this video to help others find these teachings, subscribe for more Joel Goldsmith wisdom, and comment. What healing journey resonated most with you? Beyond Joel's foundational consciousness technique, there are powerful complementary practices that significantly deepen your spiritual receptivity and accelerate your spiritual development. The first is what Joel called practicing the presence of God continuously throughout your daily activities and experiences. Instead of turning to God only when serious problems arise, you cultivate continuous recognition of divine presence in every moment. While working, you know with certainty that I am is the infinite intelligence expressing perfectly through all your activities and accomplishments. While resting, you recognize that divine peace is your natural permanent state of being. This transformative practice turns ordinary moments into sacred experiences. You're not trying to bring God into your separate life. You're recognizing that God is already the very life you're living. This recognition gradually dissolves the fundamental sense of separation from God that creates most human problems and limitations. The beauty of practicing the presence is that it requires no special time, place, or circumstances. Every single moment becomes a precious opportunity to recognize spiritual reality. The second powerful complementary technique Joel taught is going within for specific divine guidance whenever you face important decisions or challenging circumstances. Instead of trying to figure out what to do through human reasoning, you turn within to receive perfect divine direction. This isn't asking God to tell you what to do as if you were separate from divine intelligence. It's recognizing that divine intelligence is actually your own true intelligence operating. You quiet the personal thinking mind, rest in the consciousness of I am, and allow the perfect answer to unfold naturally. Sometimes divine guidance comes as a clear inner knowing, sometimes as an intuitive feeling, sometimes as circumstances that naturally open or close opportunities. The key is trusting completely that divine intelligence knows exactly what you need to know precisely when you need to know it. Joel emphasized that this inner guidance is always available without exception, but it can only be received in consciousness, never accessed through mental effort or personal struggle. The quieter your thinking mind becomes, the clearer divine direction flows. The third essential technique Joel used is releasing personal sense completely in every situation. Personal sense is the false belief that you are a separate individual who must protect, provide for, and heal yourself through personal effort and human struggle. This limiting belief blocks the natural flow of divine grace through your human experience. When you release personal sense completely, you stop trying to be the doer and recognize I am as the only true actor in every situation. You cease trying to live your life through personal will and allow divine life to live itself perfectly as your experience. This isn't becoming passive or irresponsible. It's becoming completely transparent to infinite divine activity expressing through you naturally. Joel taught that every human problem stems from personal sense trying to handle what only divine consciousness can resolve perfectly. When you release the belief that you must handle anything personally, divine handling appears automatically and effortlessly in your experience. This release happens gradually through consistent daily practice and growing spiritual understanding. Each time you catch yourself trying to handle something through personal effort, you pause immediately, release it completely to divine consciousness, and rest in the awareness that I am knows exactly what to do. These three complementary techniques work together harmoniously to establish what Joel called the consciousness of I am. This isn't a belief or a thought, it's a living awareness that divine being is your being, divine consciousness is your consciousness, divine life is your life. When this consciousness becomes firmly established through practice, you naturally stop making the mistake that almost destroyed Joel. You cease trying to use spiritual principles to improve human conditions and start recognizing that spiritual reality is the only true reality. This recognition transforms everything without any personal effort whatsoever. Health appears because you know yourself as the expression of divine wholeness. Abundance flows because you recognize yourself as infinite supply. Love expresses because you know yourself as divine love itself. Even with clear understanding of Joel's teachings, many sincere students face common obstacles that can seriously derail their spiritual progress. The first major obstacle is impatience with the gradual process of spiritual unfoldment. You desperately want immediate dramatic results, but consciousness develops gradually through consistent practice. Joel himself experienced this challenging obstacle during his early years of spiritual development. He would practice the presence faithfully for days or weeks, then become deeply discouraged when dramatic healing didn't occur immediately. This impatience actually interfered with the natural unfoldment of consciousness. The solution is understanding that every single moment of recognition, every instance of resting in consciousness, is building powerful spiritual momentum that will eventually demonstrate in human experience. You may not see immediate changes in outer appearances, but consciousness is establishing itself more firmly with each sincere practice. Trust completely that divine timing is always perfect timing. Some demonstrations happen quickly, others unfold slowly over time. Your only work is to maintain consciousness regardless of appearances. The second common obstacle is mixing spiritual consciousness with personal mental effort. You'll catch yourself practicing Joel's techniques correctly, then slipping back into trying to make something happen through personal will and human effort. This mixture seriously dilutes the effectiveness of consciousness. Joel warned against this spiritual confusion repeatedly. He taught that you cannot serve two masters simultaneously. Either you're resting peacefully in consciousness, or you're working from personal effort, but you cannot do both at the same time effectively. The mixture creates internal conflict and significantly delays demonstration of harmony. When you notice yourself trying to help consciousness along through mental effort, simply stop immediately and return to complete rest in spiritual truth. Release whatever you were trying to accomplish through personal will and re-establish your awareness in the truth of I am as the only power and presence. This is not spiritual failure. It's simply part of the natural learning process that every student experiences. The third obstacle is expecting consciousness to work according to your personal timeline and preferences. You may desperately want healing to appear in your physical body, but consciousness expresses as improved relationships. You may expect supply through your current job, but abundance comes through completely unexpected channels. Joel learned that consciousness always demonstrates perfectly, but never according to limited personal expectations. Divine intelligence knows the perfect form of expression for each situation, and this form may be completely different from what the human mind anticipates or desires. Your role is to maintain consciousness faithfully and allow divine intelligence to choose the perfect form of expression. When you insist on specific outcomes, you severely limit the infinite ways that consciousness can manifest in your experience. Trust completely that whatever consciousness produces is exactly what you need, even if it's not what you personally wanted. Divine wisdom sees the complete picture and always provides the highest good for all concerned. The final common obstacle is using Joel's techniques to improve personal sense instead of dissolving it completely. This happens when you practice consciousness in order to get a better human experience rather than recognizing your true divine nature. Joel taught that the real purpose of spiritual practice is not to improve the human, but to realize that the divine is the only identity you actually have. When you use consciousness to get better health, more money, or improved relationships, you're still operating from personal sense. True spiritual practice involves recognizing that you are already whole, abundant, and loved in consciousness. The purpose of Joel's techniques is to rest in this recognition, not to achieve it through effort. This recognition then appears as improved human experiences automatically. If these challenge-breaking techniques speak to your heart, like to support this content, subscribe for advanced spiritual practices, and comment. Which obstacle are you ready to transform now? Advanced application of Joel's teachings involves integrating consciousness into the most challenging areas of daily life. Take your work situation as a perfect example. Instead of seeing your job as separate from spiritual life, you recognize that I am is the intelligence, skill, and supply expressing through your career. This doesn't mean becoming passive about career development or professional growth. It means approaching work from consciousness rather than personal ambition and ego. You do your absolute best while knowing that divine intelligence is the true doer. You provide excellent service while recognizing that I am is the server. When workplace challenges arise, instead of fighting them mentally or emotionally, you turn immediately to consciousness. You recognize that divine harmony is the only law operating, regardless of outer appearances. This consciousness often dissolves conflicts before they fully develop into serious problems. One student applied this approach during a major corporate restructuring that threatened her position. Instead of fighting the changes through human effort, she maintained consciousness of divine order operating perfectly. She was promoted to a significantly better position, while many others were let go during the restructuring. Family relationships provide another challenging arena for advanced consciousness practice. When family members trigger old emotional patterns or create difficult challenges, instead of reacting personally, you turn to consciousness. You recognize divine love expressing through every individual, regardless of their current behavior or attitudes. This doesn't mean accepting inappropriate behavior or enabling dysfunction. It means seeing through the human appearance to the divine reality of every person, while taking appropriate human action when necessary for protection or boundaries. Joel taught that when you consistently see others from consciousness rather than personal judgment, they begin to express their divine nature more clearly in your experience. Your consciousness of their spiritual perfection calls forth their perfection and dissolves discord. One practitioner used this approach with her alcoholic brother, who had been destroying his life for years. Instead of trying to change him through human effort, she held the consciousness of his divine wholeness. Over several months of consistent practice, he sought treatment voluntarily and recovered completely. Health challenges offer perhaps the most demanding arena for consciousness practice. When symptoms appear or medical diagnoses are given, the natural temptation is to fight the condition mentally or try to heal the body through spiritual effort. Joel's approach is radically different from conventional spiritual healing methods. Instead of seeing yourself as sick and trying to become well through effort, you recognize that in consciousness, wholeness is your permanent, unchanging nature. You don't deny what appears to be happening in human experience, but you refuse to give it spiritual reality or power. This practice requires consistent return to consciousness whenever fear or symptoms try to claim your attention and disturb your peace. You acknowledge what appears to be happening while resting firmly in the knowledge of what is actually true spiritually. A longtime student faced a serious cancer diagnosis that appeared life-threatening. Instead of fighting the disease through human effort, she maintained consciousness of her divine wholeness. The cancer completely disappeared within months, but more importantly, she discovered unshakable peace regardless of physical appearances. Financial challenges provide another opportunity for advanced consciousness practice. When bills mount or income decreases, instead of struggling to get more money through human effort, you rest in consciousness. You recognize that I am is infinite supply, appearing as your daily needs perfectly met. This approach seems completely impractical to the human mind, but Joel proved its effectiveness throughout his entire ministry. He never asked for money, yet always had abundant supply. He rested in consciousness and allowed divine supply to appear naturally. You practice this by releasing financial concerns to consciousness while taking appropriate human steps. You pay bills, seek employment, and manage resources wisely, but you do these things from consciousness rather than fear. One practitioner applied this during extended unemployment. Instead of desperately seeking work through human effort, he maintained consciousness of divine intelligence expressing through his career. The perfect position appeared with better pay and conditions than his previous job. As consciousness becomes firmly established through consistent practice, you begin to experience what Joel called the mystical life. This is life lived from constant awareness of your divine nature rather than personal sense of separation from God. In the mystical life, problems don't disappear from human experience, but your relationship to them transforms completely. Challenges become opportunities to deepen consciousness. Difficulties become invitations to release more personal sense and rest more completely in I am. You discover that external harmony is not the ultimate goal of spiritual practice. Internal recognition of truth is the goal. When you know yourself as consciousness itself, external appearances lose their power to disturb your peace or diminish your joy. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent to human experience or withdrawing from life. It means experiencing human life from the perspective of consciousness rather than personal sense. You engage fully in life while remaining spiritually free from personal attachment to outcomes. The mystical life transforms your entire approach to helping others spiritually. Instead of trying to heal people or solve their problems through human effort, you maintain consciousness of their divine wholeness and allow that recognition to bless their experience naturally. Joel discovered that the most effective healing work happens when you completely forget about the person's problem and rest in the consciousness of God's presence. Your consciousness becomes a perfect transparency for divine love to touch their experience. This approach requires releasing all personal responsibility for others, while remaining available to serve as consciousness directs. You don't fix anyone through human effort, but you hold the consciousness that allows divine fixing to occur naturally. Many students find this the most challenging aspect of mystical living. Personal sense desperately wants to help through human effort, but consciousness serves through divine being. Learning this crucial difference transforms both your service and your effectiveness in helping others experience healing. After decades of consistent practice, advanced students discover what Joel called the natural life. This is living from consciousness so consistently that it becomes completely effortless. You no longer have to remember to practice the presence, you simply live as presence itself. The techniques that once required discipline become natural as breathing. Recognizing I am becomes as automatic as physical breathing. Resting in consciousness becomes your normal state rather than something you do during spiritual practice times. In this natural life, the mistake that almost destroyed Joel becomes completely impossible. You couldn't try to use personal will for spiritual work because personal will has dissolved into divine will. You couldn't make spiritual effort because consciousness has become your effortless nature. This is not a distant goal, but a present possibility available right now. Every moment you rest in consciousness instead of personal effort, you're living the natural life. Every instance of recognizing I am instead of trying to become something, you're expressing mystical consciousness. You now understand the mistake that almost destroyed Joel Goldsmith and how it's been destroying your spiritual effectiveness. You've learned the secret that transformed his crisis into his greatest discovery. Consciousness, not effort, is the key to spiritual demonstration. The path forward is clear, but requires unwavering commitment. Stop trying to use spiritual techniques to improve human conditions through personal effort. Start resting in the consciousness that recognizes spiritual reality as the only true reality. Let this recognition transform your experience naturally. Remember, you are not a human being seeking a spiritual experience through effort. You are consciousness itself, appearing as human experience. When this recognition becomes firmly established, everything Joel taught becomes your natural expression, and his mistake becomes impossible to make. Begin today by choosing consciousness over effort in one specific area of your life. Rest in I am instead of trying to become something. Allow divine intelligence to handle what personal will cannot accomplish. Your transformation starts with this choice. If your spiritual understanding expanded through these Joel Goldsmith secrets, like this video, subscribe for more transformative teachings, and comment, I am transformed, to confirm your new path.
Have you ever felt like you're constantly searching for something spiritual, yet no matter how many practices you try, how many books you read, or how much you meditate, you still feel like you're missing the key that unlocks true transformation? What if everything you've been taught about spiritual growth has been fundamentally backwards? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. In his final moments on earth, spiritual teacher Joel Goldsmith whispered a revelation so profound yet so simple that it contradicts virtually everything most spiritual seekers have been taught. Has this ever happened to you? You learn a spiritual principle intellectually, you understand it completely, and yet somehow you can't make it work consistently in your daily life? You're not alone. For decades, even Joel himself struggled with this disconnect between spiritual truth and practical transformation. What Joel discovered in those precious final moments was the missing link, a master key that makes every spiritual practice work effortlessly. The revelation centered around a familiar biblical phrase, I of myself can do nothing, the Father within doeth the works. But here's the crucial difference. Joel discovered how to actually activate this principle instantly in real life, not just understand it intellectually. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you and even challenge everything you thought you knew about consciousness, healing, and spiritual growth. Joel realized that most seekers, himself included for many years, were approaching spirituality like a cosmic vending machine, putting in enough prayer, meditation, and positive thinking with the expectation of getting healing, abundance, and happiness in return. The fundamental misunderstanding that keeps so many spiritual seekers trapped is this idea that we need to use consciousness to get something from God. We believe we're separate from what we seek, and that through spiritual effort we might eventually reach it. But what if the truth is actually the complete opposite? What if you don't need to become more spiritual because you already are the very spirituality you've been seeking? What if you don't need to attract abundance because you already are infinite supply expressing? What if you don't need to heal because you already are perfect life itself? This complete reversal of understanding was Joel's ultimate revelation, one that transformed not only his own experience, but also the lives of thousands who applied it. And the most extraordinary part, this shift in consciousness doesn't require years of spiritual practice, perfect faith, or special qualifications. It requires only one thing: the willingness to stop being the person who has the problem and start recognizing yourself as the consciousness that dissolves all problems naturally. But how exactly do you make this profound shift? That's where things get interesting. If you're resonating with these profound teachings about consciousness, hit that subscribe button and join our community of seekers exploring the depths of spiritual awakening together. The secret Joel discovered turns spiritual seeking completely upside down. It's not about acquiring, attracting, or achieving anything at all. It's about recognizing what has always been true about your essential nature. This revelation is the hidden truth behind every authentic spiritual teaching throughout history, though often obscured by complicated practices and intellectual concepts. Think of it this way. Imagine you're wearing glasses, but have completely forgotten you have them on. You spend years searching everywhere for these glasses, growing increasingly frustrated and desperate. Then one day, someone simply points out that they've been on your face the entire time. That moment of recognition instantly ends the search. This is exactly what happens in the journey of consciousness that Joel described. The very awareness you've been seeking through meditation, prayer, and spiritual practice is what you already are and have always been. You're not a human being who might someday become spiritual enough to experience divine consciousness. You are divine consciousness itself, having a temporary human experience. The revelation sounds deceptively simple when put into words, which is precisely why the analytical mind tends to dismiss it. That can't possibly be all there is to it, the intellect protests. Spiritual transformation must surely be more complex, require more effort, more purification, more discipline. And this very protest keeps millions trapped in endless seeking, never experiencing the freedom that comes from simple recognition. Joel discovered that behind every healing, every demonstration of abundance, every experience of deep peace is the exact same principle. You are not using consciousness as a tool to improve your life. You are consciousness itself, temporarily believing yourself to be separate from what you seek. The most surprising aspect of this mindset shift is that it works whether you fully understand it or not, whether you feel worthy or not, whether you've studied spiritual teachings for decades or just encountered them yesterday. It doesn't depend on your spiritual development or your belief system. It depends only on your willingness to experiment with recognizing your true identity as consciousness rather than as a separate person with problems to solve. Margaret, who attended one of Joel's final seminars, had suffered with chronic pain for 20 years that no medical treatment could touch. Within minutes of applying Joel's technique of shifting identity from person with pain to consciousness aware of sensation, something transformed internally. 3 days later, she woke completely pain-free for the first time in decades. The pain hadn't been healed. It had been recognized as not being part of her essential self. Now I want to go even deeper into this recognition and show you how it applies to every area of life, from health and relationships to finances and emotional well-being. The implications of this revelation are so far-reaching that they literally redefine what it means to be human. If you're starting to sense this profound truth about your own nature, write in the comments, "I am consciousness itself." The most liberating aspect of Joel's discovery is that this profound identity shift doesn't require decades of spiritual preparation, extensive knowledge of metaphysics, or achieving some mystical state of consciousness. The transformation can happen in seconds rather than lifetimes, because it's not about becoming something new, it's about recognizing what has always been true. Consider Robert, a businessman who lost everything in a financial collapse. He understood spiritual principles intellectually and could quote scripture about God's abundance, but nothing translated into practical results when creditors called and bills accumulated. When Robert learned to apply Joel's technique of shifting his identity from desperate person trying to fix circumstances to consciousness in which both prosperity and lack appear temporarily, his entire experience transformed. This mindset revolution doesn't depend on how spiritually developed you are, how consistent your meditation practice is, or even how much faith you have. That's the hidden truth that frees so many people from the endless pursuit of spiritual perfection. You don't need to be worthy of healing or abundance. You already are the very consciousness that creates, sustains, and dissolves all experiences. Think about what this means for your journey, all those moments you felt not spiritual enough, not disciplined enough, or not deserving enough. What if none of that ever mattered? What if the only barrier between you and the fullness of life has been this case of mistaken identity, believing yourself to be separate from the very consciousness you've been seeking? Behind the scenes of every authentic spiritual awakening is this same recognition. I am not this limited person with problems. I am the unlimited awareness in which all experiences arise and dissolve. This isn't positive thinking or affirmation. It's a fundamental revelation about your essential nature that changes everything once recognized. Sarah struggled with depression that medications couldn't touch and therapy couldn't permanently heal. But when she learned to stop identifying with depressed thoughts and emotions, and instead recognized herself as the awareness observing them, something remarkable happened. The depression didn't instantly vanish, but her relationship to it transformed completely. She discovered an inner stillness that no mood could disturb, the I am that exists prior to all psychological states. The impact of this recognition extends to every aspect of life: health, finances, relationships, creativity, purpose. When you stop trying to fix yourself as a limited person and start operating from your true position as consciousness itself, solutions appear that the struggling mind could never conceive. Decisions become clearer. Creativity flows naturally. Healing happens spontaneously. The real transformation isn't in changing circumstances, but in recognizing what has never changed, the pure awareness at the center of all your experiences. This awareness has never been sick, never been poor, never been afraid, never been limited in any way. Only the temporary identity of personhood experiences these conditions. Let's explore how Joel taught people to practically maintain this recognition moment by moment throughout daily life, especially when facing challenging circumstances. If you've experienced glimpses of this pure awareness beyond your personal identity, put in the comments, "I recognize my true nature." Joel's revolutionary approach to healing is powerfully illustrated through Margaret's journey. For 20 years, she carried chronic pain that no doctor could explain or heal. She had exhausted every avenue of traditional medicine, medications that stopped working, surgeries that made things worse, therapies that helped briefly before the pain returned even stronger. Her medical file was thicker than a phone book, yet her suffering remained a mystery that science couldn't solve. What happened at Joel's final seminar wasn't a new technique or another spiritual band-aid. It was a complete paradigm shift. Within minutes of learning to shift her identity from Margaret with pain to pure awareness observing sensation, something fundamental changed. Not the pain itself, that remained exactly as before, but her relationship to it transformed completely. The breakthrough wasn't about making the pain go away through affirmation or visualization. It was about recognizing that her essential self, pure awareness, could never be in pain. Only the temporary identity of Margaret could experience suffering. 3 days after this recognition took root, she woke without pain for the first time in decades. But more importantly, she had discovered who she really was, beyond all physical sensations and limitations. Subscribe now to continue your journey of consciousness recognition with more insights from Joel Goldsmith and other spiritual pioneers who discovered these transformative truths. The same principle that transformed Margaret's physical experience reshaped Robert's financial reality. After losing everything in a business collapse that destroyed his reputation and left his family facing foreclosure, Robert had tried everything from positive affirmations to visualization practices. He could quote prosperity principles by heart, but his bank account remained stubbornly empty. The catalyst for Robert's turnaround wasn't finding a magical manifestation formula. It was recognizing his true identity as consciousness itself. He stopped trying to fix his circumstances from the desperate position of a ruined businessman and started operating from his real identity as the awareness in which both prosperity and poverty appear as temporary experiences, neither touching his true, infinite nature. Within weeks, opportunities emerged seemingly from nowhere. Former clients returned with new projects. Partnerships formed naturally. But the real transformation wasn't the improving circumstances. It was Robert's unshakable peace, knowing that his true identity could never be threatened by any external condition or financial situation. The revelation behind both these transformations unveils a profound truth. Healing and abundance aren't things consciousness creates or attracts. They're what consciousness already is when not mistakenly identified with limitation. Your journey through any challenge, whether physical, financial, or emotional, is never about getting something you lack. It's about recognizing what you've always been beneath the temporary story of limitation. Let's explore the practical tools Joel developed to maintain this recognition consistently, especially during times when circumstances seem to contradict your true, unlimited nature. These aren't techniques to make problems go away. They're practices that reveal the awareness that problems can never touch. If you've experienced a moment where your perception of a problem completely shifted just by changing your relationship to it, share in the comments. I've witnessed this transformation. Emotional suffering can be just as debilitating as physical pain, as Sarah discovered through her years battling depression. Despite trying psychiatric medications, therapy, meditation, exercise, everything modern science and holistic approaches offered, she remained trapped in a mind she couldn't seem to escape or heal. The depression wasn't just sadness. It was a heavy blanket of hopelessness, making even simple daily activities feel overwhelming. The breakthrough came when Sarah learned Joel's approach to emotional freedom. Instead of identifying with the depressed thoughts and feelings as my depression or trying to fight against them, she learned to shift her awareness to the position of the observer, the consciousness that witnesses all mental states without being defined by any of them. This revelation transformed her journey instantly. The depression didn't magically disappear overnight, but her relationship to it changed completely. She discovered an inner stillness that no mood could disturb, the I am that exists prior to all psychological conditions and remains eternally free from every emotion that seems to control human experience. To help people maintain this recognition consistently, Joel developed what he called the witness position, a practical approach to living from awareness rather than personality. This isn't about detaching from life or becoming emotionally numb. It's about discovering the most intimate connection possible with experience by recognizing yourself as the very consciousness in which all experiences arise, unfold, and dissolve naturally. Try this simple practice right now. Notice that you are aware of reading these words. You're not just the thoughts about them or the person reading them, you're the awareness in which all of these appear. This awareness is your true identity, infinite, eternal, and inherently free from every limitation that seems to define human experience. The witness position creates immediate space between you and any problem or limitation. When anxiety arises, instead of being an anxious person, you recognize, I am awareness, observing anxiety appearing in consciousness. When financial worry, emerges rather than becoming identified as someone with money problems. You shift to, I am consciousness, aware of thoughts about money. This single mindset revolution transforms every challenge from something happening to you into something happening within you, within the infinite field of awareness that you are. The power of this shift lies in its simplicity. You're not adding anything new to your experience or trying to change what's happening. You're simply recognizing your true position as the awareness in which all experiences appear. The beauty of this approach is that it works in real time, in the midst of life's most challenging moments. Unlike practices that require stepping away from life to meditate or contemplate, the witness position is applicable in the middle of an argument, during financial stress, or while facing health challenges. Let's explore how this same recognition extends beyond individual experiences to transform our perception of time itself, revealing another dimension of freedom. If you've noticed yourself naturally stepping back from identifying with thoughts or emotions, even momentarily, type in the comments, I am the witness. Joel discovered that our experience of problems is fundamentally tied to our perception of time. Every worry, every fear, every sense of limitation exists only in the mental constructs of past and future, neither of which has any reality in consciousness itself. Your true nature exists in what Joel called the eternal now, a timeless awareness that transcends the linear progression of moments that seem to constitute human experience. When you shift your identity from the time-bound person to timeless awareness, something remarkable happens. Problems lose their reality and power over your experience. Think about it. Worry requires a future that doesn't actually exist except as thought. Regret requires a past that has no reality except as memory. Only now is real, and now is always perfect, complete and lacking nothing. Try this revolutionary perspective. Feel your way into this present moment so completely that past and future dissolve entirely. From this vantage point of timeless awareness, what problem could possibly exist? What fear could have any foundation when only the perfection of now is present? This isn't an intellectual exercise, but a direct recognition of your natural state of being that's always available beneath the stream of time-bound thinking. The insight behind this practice unveils a hidden truth about the nature of consciousness. You are not moving through time. Time is moving through you, through the unchanging awareness that is your essential nature. Every challenge you've ever faced exists only in the story of past and future, while your true identity remains forever untouched in the eternal now. To strengthen this recognition, Joel developed a third complementary practice he called recognition gratitude. Unlike conventional gratitude that focuses on being thankful for what you hope to receive in the future, this approach acknowledges what already is, the completeness that consciousness itself already embodies. Instead of saying, I'm grateful that I might be healed someday, or thank you for the abundance that might come to me, you recognize, I am grateful that I am perfect health itself, and I am grateful that I am infinite supply itself. This isn't positive thinking or manifestation. It's acknowledging the truth about your essential nature as consciousness. The power of this approach is that it bypasses the usual spiritual trap of seeking to become what you already are. It establishes you immediately in the truth of your being and allows that truth to express naturally in your daily experience without force or struggle. The recognition, I am grateful that I am unlimited love itself, isn't a hope for the future, but a fact about your present nature as consciousness. These practices work together synergistically to establish you more firmly in the recognition of your true identity. The witness position creates space between you and limiting experiences. Timeless awareness dissolves problems at their source. Recognition gratitude reveals the completeness you have always been beneath the story of seeking. Let's explore how these principles apply in the laboratory of daily life, in relationships, work, health challenges, and financial decisions, where theory meets practice and transformation becomes lived reality. If you've experienced moments of timeless awareness where problems seem to dissolve in the recognition of the eternal now, share in the comments. I live in the eternal present. Even the most profound spiritual recognition encounters moments of doubt. Joel understood this better than most and developed a revolutionary approach to doubt that transforms it from enemy to ally on the spiritual journey. Most traditions teach us to overcome, eliminate, or push away doubt, treating it as evidence of spiritual failure or lack of faith. But Joel discovered a hidden truth about doubt that changes everything. When doubt arises, and it inevitably will, don't try to fight it or convince yourself it's wrong through positive affirmations. Instead, simply notice, I am aware of doubt arising in consciousness. This subtle but profound perspective shift is revolutionary because it immediately returns you to your true position as awareness rather than keeping you identified with the doubting mind. The insight here reveals a breakthrough in spiritual practice. Doubt actually serves an essential purpose in consciousness recognition. It shows you precisely where you're still identified with the person mind, rather than resting in your true nature as awareness itself. Each moment of doubt becomes a doorway back to recognition, rather than an obstacle to it. Behind the scenes of every spiritual journey is this dance between recognition and forgetting, between resting as awareness and getting caught in identification with thoughts and experiences. The challenge isn't to eliminate forgetting, but to use each instance as an invitation to remember what you really are. This approach transforms your relationship to spiritual practice completely. Instead of striving for perfection, you welcome every experience as part of the journey of consciousness knowing itself. The true revolution in Joel's teaching was his emphasis on integrating this recognition into everyday life, rather than reserving it for special meditation sessions or retreats. Consciousness recognition becomes most powerful when applied to ordinary activities and relationships, washing dishes, driving to work, having conversations, paying bills, all as consciousness rather than as a separate person trying to get through life. Start with simple activities. When washing dishes, shift from being a person doing a chore to consciousness experiencing sensation, movement, and perception. When driving, rather than being a stressed person in traffic, recognize yourself as awareness experiencing movement through space. When listening to others, instead of being a person trying to get something from this interaction, rest as consciousness experiencing communication. This mindset shift transforms ordinary life into a laboratory for spiritual recognition. Every activity becomes sacred, not because of what you're doing, but because of who is doing it. Consciousness itself experiencing its own infinite expressions. The mundane becomes profound, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and daily life becomes a continuous opportunity for awakening. The real breakthrough happens when you apply this recognition to challenging relationships. The coworker who triggers irritation, the family member who pushes your buttons, the stranger who cuts you off in traffic. These moments reveal where person identification still operates automatically, providing perfect opportunities to practice returning to your true position as limitless awareness. Let's explore how to maintain this recognition when facing life's biggest challenges, health crises, financial uncertainty, and emotional trauma, where the rubber truly meets the road in spiritual practice. If you've begun noticing yourself naturally shifting to the witness position during everyday activities, share in the comments. I am consciousness in action. Relationships offer perhaps the most potent laboratory for consciousness recognition, especially those challenging connections that trigger strong emotional reactions. When someone pushes your buttons, criticizes you unfairly, or behaves in ways that spark defensiveness, you're receiving a precious gift. Consciousness is revealing exactly where person identification still operates automatically in your experience. Most spiritual approaches teach us to manage these difficult interactions through techniques like compassion practice, boundary setting, or communication skills. While these have their place, Joel discovered something more fundamental: the opportunity to shift identity entirely in these triggering moments. Instead of being a person defending against attack, you recognize yourself as limitless awareness, observing the entire interaction, including your own reactions, without being defined by any of it. Try this revolutionary approach next time someone irritates you. Silently recognize, I am consciousness itself, aware of irritation arising and passing. This subtle shift transforms everything about the encounter. From the awareness position, you can respond with wisdom and appropriate action without losing your peace or getting entangled in emotional reactions that often make situations worse. The insight behind this approach reveals a profound truth about human conflict. Most relationship struggles stem from two-person identities defending against each other, both forgetting their true nature as consciousness itself. The moment either party shifts to awareness, the entire dynamic transforms, not because the other person changes, but because one participant is no longer playing the same game of attack and defense. This perspective revolution extends to every relationship in your life. Intimate partners, family members, co-workers, even brief encounters with strangers. Each becomes an opportunity to practice recognition rather than reaction, to respond from awareness rather than personality, to embody the truth of what you are rather than defend who you think you should be. The journey through all these practices leads to what Joel called the ultimate secret, the final realization that brings together every aspect of consciousness recognition into a unified understanding. Consciousness is not something you have or use like a tool or resource. Consciousness is what you are at the deepest level of being. Every problem, every limitation, every fear exists only in the mistaken belief that you are something other than pure awareness itself, expressing as individual consciousness. From this recognition flows natural healing, effortless supply, and unshakable peace. Not as rewards for spiritual achievement or good behavior, but as the natural expression of your true nature finally recognized and lived authentically. You don't need to become spiritual because you are spirituality itself, individualized. You don't need to find God because consciousness is God expressing as you. You don't need to earn love because you are love, aware of itself. The transformation Joel experienced and taught wasn't about becoming more spiritual through practice and discipline. It was about recognizing the consciousness that had always been present, but was obscured by identification with personality, body, circumstances, and the story of being a separate person. If you're beginning to feel the resonance of this ultimate recognition in your own being, write in the comments, I am consciousness individualized. As we come to the close of our exploration of Joel Goldsmith's profound final revelations, I hope you've glimpsed the transformative power of this simple yet radical recognition. The journey to discovering your true nature as consciousness itself isn't a linear path with a final destination. It's an ongoing awakening that deepens with each moment of recognition. This understanding has the potential to completely transform how you experience challenges, relationships, and even your own identity. When you recognize that you are not a person trying to become spiritual, but consciousness itself, having a human experience, everything shifts. If these insights have touched something deep within you, I'd love to hear about your own journey of recognition. Drop a comment below with consciousness recognized. so I know you've traveled this path with me to the end. Your experiences and insights are valuable not just to me, but to everyone exploring this profound teaching. If you found value in these revelations about your true nature, consider hitting that like button. It helps others discover these transformative teachings that might be exactly what they need in this moment of their journey. For those who want to continue exploring Joel's revolutionary approach to spiritual awakening, I invite you to subscribe. We regularly share these profound yet practical teachings that can transform your experience from the inside out. There's a video right here that explores how to apply these principles specifically to health, challenges, and physical healing. Click and continue with me over there as we dive deeper into the practical application of consciousness recognition in one of life's most challenging arenas. Thank you for your presence and attention, because after all, presence and attention are what you truly are.